All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining our second day of Assistive Technology Week. We are so excited. Today we have Jill Adlin from Control Bionics who will be presenting on the NeuroNode as well as other features. Jill is a licensed speech language pathologist who has worked in a variety of settings with a wide range of ages and diagnoses. Most recently, she spent a decade serving as an AAC specialist on assistive technology teams in Tennessee, as well as North Carolina, before joining Control Bionics as a regional consultant. She is passionate about helping individuals develop and maintain connection through communication. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the chat feature on Facebook, or if you're joining on Zoom, you can use the chat feature or the Q&A. The presenter will answer your question at the end of her presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Jill. Take it away.
Great. Thanks so much, Reagan. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I always call myself a device evangelist because I just want to get the information out there so everybody knows all the options available to them, because we live in a great time of assistive technology right now. So many excellent options and choices out there. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to share ours today. So I'm going to share my screen now. I shared with Reagan that I am in a hotel room and I've got fingers and toes crossed that our internet here can handle what we're doing. So I'm going to share this screen, and I've got a PowerPoint to help guide our discussion. So we're just going to talk about the benefits of just having a flexible augmentative communication option. As Reagan said, I'm a licensed speech pathologist, and I just use this slide to show me with one of my all-time favorite people, Mr. Payton, who had ALS and who is a phenomenal device user. So just to kind of introduce the idea of the communication device, and I know that you may have explored lots of options out there. So I just want to talk about that we've got three pieces anytime we're talking about an augmentative communication device or an AAC device. You have the computer itself, and then you've got the communication software that's on that computer. And then you've got how do you access the communication software on that computer. So those are three really important pieces. We're going to focus most on the access aspect of that today, because that's something that's a significant concern when we're talking about clients who have ALS. So Control Bionics, we have two different devices or computers that software and access can be a part of. It's a 3-in-1 solution, kind of 4-in-1 if you have a phase where you're using the touch screen, but it does allow for touch control, traditional eye gaze control with a dwell or a blink to activate, scanning control of the device, as well as what we call our Trilogy user, which is where we use our eyes, along with the NeuroNode to activate things on the device. It legitimately is faster when you're using the eye gaze with Trilogy, and it's also reduced fatigue. So here's where I'm going to go ahead and talk about the fact that in my world on assistive technology teams, one of the things that I always made it a habit to do was to, if I was recommending a communication device or system for someone, I use that for my own communication for 24 hours. And it's really important that there's no cheating during that there's no verbal speech during that. But I call that boot camp, because if you use a device for yourself for 24 hours, you find out what's easy, what's hard, what kinds of vocabulary is there that shouldn't be or should be there that isn't, all those ways to know what the person using the device is going to be experiencing. So it's based on that and not based on the fact that I work for Control Bionics that I will tell you that it is legitimately faster and legitimately reduces your fatigue in using the device as compared to more traditional alternative access methods. And I am so much of a geek that I actually, this is so cheesy, I actually have these phrases that anytime I'm using a new device or a new access method, I try producing those phrases and I compare the timing. So that's how cheesy I am. And that is another reason I can tell you it's not just a line from Control Bionics, it's legitimately faster access option. So we'll talk about the differences if we have time. We'll talk about the differences between the two computers that can run our equipment. Both of them offer some really incredible features, but they all are going to work in the same way. They're all going to have the same software, and they're all going to interface with the NeuroNode in the same way. So what I'm about to talk about applies to both devices. And so Reagan, you'll probably have to keep me on track time-wise, so just let me know. So as I said earlier, you've got 3 ways to access that communication software on the device with our devices. You've got traditional eye control, which you may be familiar with, like a Tobii device, for example. If you use your eyes to move around the screen and then to click on something, you would dwell or blink on that item. So you would set a specific amount of time and stare at the item that you want to select within that amount of time, or blink for that length of time. So that's traditional eye control. We also have the option to scan, where an activation of the NeuroNode makes the items start being scanned, highlighted across the screen, and when you get to what you want, you activate it again. This is a slower method, but it is a wonderful option to have available if there are situations where, for whatever reason, maybe because of a headache, maybe because of medication, you can't use your eyes. It's a great option to have. And then, of course, the Trilogy combination, where we're using our eyes to move around the screen and an activation of the NeuroNode to select it. So let's take a look. I've got a video of scanning, and in the video, it's just an example of me using it. You'll notice that the scanning speed, so the speed with which the bar goes across all of the choices on the computer, is a little bit fast. It's because I made this video to compare it to using that with a human being doing partner assisted scanning, which is another great option. But the person I was comparing it to was moving very quickly, so I was trying to emulate that. But in this, you'll see that the computer is automatically scanning across the options on the screen. I'm wearing the NeuroNode on my wrist in EMG mode, and it is taking a very tiny activation, just a tiny little movement of my hand, to make it click on the screen. So let's watch that. And when you hear a beep in this video, that is an indication that the NeuroNode has activated on the device. You can see it highlighting my choices, and a little movement of my hand here to make the NeuroNode activate. So that is a look at scanning. And I'm going to move on past that one, and we'll go back to the eye gaze with NeuroNode. So again, just to be clear about this, when you think about using your own computer and you use a mouse, you move around the screen by moving the mouse, and when you get to what you want, you click on it. So here I'm using my eyes to move around the screen, and I'm using a little movement of my hand to activate the NeuroNode. And again, the NeuroNode's placed like it was in the first video, kind of back on my arm, but this is a great look to see how little movement is required to activate the NeuroNode. My leg. Okay, and so that's just using your eyes along with the NeuroNode. So I use those up front because I don't know if you're familiar with the idea of a flipped classroom. For me, I think it's really helpful to get a sense of what we're talking about before we talk about specifics. So you've seen that we've got these different methods to access what's on the computer. We can use our eyes with the NeuroNode, our eyes with just a dwell or a blink, or scanning with the NeuroNode. So now that you have a sense of the big picture, let's walk back and talk about the specifics of the NeuroNode itself, because that's what's really different. The NeuroNode is essentially a switch. There's a lot of switches in the realm of assistive technology. We are mechanical switches and proximity switches. We've got all kinds of options. What's really different about the NeuroNode is, first of all, as you can see, it's wearable. That's really important because if you have a body that is very complex in its needs, you typically are going to be in some unusual situations. Maybe you move from a wheelchair to lying down in a bed to sitting in a sofa. And if you have a traditional switch, moving that switch with you as you go to those different locations is going to be challenging. And it's something that is going to take time and going to take effort and sometimes just doesn't happen. So having a wearable switch is really important. So the NeuroNode is that wearable switch, and it has got, as you can see, 24 hours of active battery life. So it's going to be with you all day long. It's very compact, about the size of an Apple Watch. It can be used in 2 different modes. It can be used in EMG mode or spatial mode. So we'll talk a little bit more about those modes later, but that is just going to give you more access opportunities. Here, they're kind of hard to see in this picture, so I've put little blue arrows. There's little notches on the top, and those indicate where the active electrodes are inside the NeuroNode, which really helps with positioning it appropriately on the client. And there are a variety of placement options. We'll look at that in just a minute as well. It's super durable. I don't know if I should share this, but I have put it through its paces. Inadvertently, I was not intentionally testing durability, but I've done a variety of things, not the least of which is that don't even ask me how, somehow in my kitchen, I really don't know how this happened. It went across the kitchen, bounced off the end of my countertop and into my dog's water bowl. This has been months and months and months ago, and I wouldn't recommend deep sea diving in the NeuroNode, but it did survive its time in my dog's water bowl and is still functioning beautifully. So that says a lot to me. And it is compatible with iOS on it, so on an iPad or Windows. Our devices that you saw in the photo were Windows devices, but you can also use it with an iPad. So in spatial mode, we're going to use that in a situation where our EMG signal is not consistent. So that can happen if you've got fasciculations, which can happen obviously with ALS. If somebody was tactily defensive or did not want it touching their skin, if you're using it in spatial mode, it can be put over the clothing, which is important. It's really good for tremors. You can put it in spatial mode for that. Or if you have good head control, it's a great way to use spatial mode as well. With EMG mode, and this is what many of our clients with ALS are going to use, that's for anyone who has minimal movement. So often it's really important when we use that word movement. A lot of times I think people are thinking of more traditional movements. It does not have to be functional movement. So often, when we speak with families ahead of time, we'll hear, well, he has no movement at all. But then when we come, as it turns out, they may have a little bit of movement in their eyebrows or a little movement around their facial area. So when we say minimal movement, we truly mean minimal, and I'll have some more videos to kind of highlight that. Also, if you fatigue very easily, because in the EMG mode, it is extremely sensitive, so it can pick up the tiniest of movements. This is important because a lot of times at the beginning of the day, you really may have more movement, but of course your body is busy fighting everything with ALS, and we know that fatigue is a really big aspect. So we know that what you are able to do at 9 o'clock in the morning by 2 or 3 in the afternoon may be extraordinarily difficult. So being able to just use minimal movement is really important. If you have only eye movement, we do have a way to pick up that movement around the eye orbit. So that's another access method. We do need consistent activation of a muscle so that we're able to intentionally do some sort of activation. And again, that can be minimal, but it does need to be able to be consistent. So regardless of whether you're using spatial or EMG movement, it's going to look exactly the same on the computer in what we call the controller app. And the controller app is just where we can see what's going on with your muscles and the NeuroNode. And it looks exactly the same way. So I'm going to just tell you that the controller app looks very sciencey and intimidating. I mean, to me it does, because I am neither sciencey or techie at all, at all. But that is good news for anyone out there who thinks this looks too high tech, because I promise if I can do it, you can do it. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the controller app. I'm going to show you that in just a few minutes, how that works. And how it's not as intimidating as it may look on first glance. So if I am using the NeuroNode in spatial mode, it's got something in it that's kind of like the accelerometer that's in your phone. So how your phone knows how it's positioned and it can change the screen. That's what is going on inside the NeuroNode. And so if I'm using it in spatial mode, I've got several different options of how to wear it. Most often people are using it in the band. The wrist is a popular option. I also have a lot of clients who like it on the foot and to capture the movement of a foot tap. But this is just an example. In this situation, one of our consultants is showing, this is the iPad, and this is an app that is going to allow for scanning. And so you'll see, like you did in the earlier video, when she first activates by moving her wrist slightly to the right, it's going to activate the scan. And when it gets to the word that she wants, she's going to activate again. So let's just watch that.
I. Like. It. I like it.
Okay, so that is a great example to show you just the tiny amount of movement that's required. She's using the non-adhesive band. They're now black. That was our original band. We now have black ones. Unless you have a fun personality, and I have created some very sparkly glittery bands for people in other situations. So that's one of your options. I also want to take just a minute because I think knowing about these different access methods is really important. And this is the scanning method. Again, if you have any sort of difficulty with your eyes, this would be a good choice. And the scan patterns, there's many features about the scanning that can be changed. You can change how fast it scans. You can change the pattern it uses to scan. You can change how it highlights your scan options. So just know that what you saw in that example is just one way to do a scan. There's lots of things that you can do to change how that would work for you, but it is great to have as an option. So this is yet another scanning option, and I mostly just do this for my own benefit because this video makes me happy. So we'll watch scanning. And this is a placement on the foot over the shoe. Like I said, I've got a lot of people using this placement that's very popular.
Speak.
I love that. So you can absolutely train your animals to respond to your communication device, but that is another scanning option. So when we're talking about EMG mode, again, it's when you present with minimal movement, fatigue very easily, or maybe only has facial movement. So let's look at that. This is just a look at 5 of the most frequent placements. But what's kind of incredible about the electrode placement is if there is something on your body that you can move, even minimally, there is going to be a way for us to get to it because we can use electrodes and an adapter to get anywhere. So for example, a shoulder shrug, we can place electrodes on your back, around your shoulder. We can use it on your leg. So any place that you can do a movement, if you have got a consistent movement, there is a way for us to access that using some electrode placements. So again, in EMG, you can use that non-adhesive band, but you can also use a variety of different types of electrodes. And you can see there's different sizes based on which part of your body we need to access. And this is so key because obviously ALS is a progressive disease. And so how things look when you first start with the device will change over time. So each thing that you see, even though it's a lot of information to present at one time, every piece of this reflects a way that we can change and adapt as your movement and needs change over the course of the disease, because it's really important that what you can access and what you can say with your device in year 1 is the same as it is in year 3, is the same as it is in year 5. And so we can keep finding those options for access by using all of these different electrodes. This is Nick. He is, again, a power user, and he has actually spinal muscular atrophy. But this is a great look at when I talked about the fact that we are saying minimal movement and that it doesn't have to be functional movement. Most people, if they walked in and met Nick, they would think that he does not have movement that we could access. So I want to show you, he's got the NeuroNode obviously in his palm. And in this video, if you see a green light and or hear a beep, that means he has generated enough movement for the device to recognize what he's doing as a click. So he's going to use his eyes with the NeuroNode as his click, which is our Trilogy access method. And it's a great example of how little movement is required.
This is my NeuroNode.
So Nick's using this as a clicker, the NeuroNode, and he's
This
using
is
eye
awesome.
gaze to talk.
This is my NeuroNode.
I love Nick's mom in that. She's like a great little MC to what he's doing, but you can see that there was no visible movement on Nick's part, but he was still sending when he attempts to move his muscles in his hand. Even though you don't really see the movement, his brain is sending a signal to his hand, asking it to move. So even though we can't see the movement, the NeuroNode is able to pick up on that electrical signal from his brain. And I will just tell you, I've worked for Control Bionics for a little while now, and I am still amazed by that. I just think this is incredible. It's really cool that something can pick up so little movement. I do want to clarify one thing. There are a few people who have said that they can really only think about moving their arm or their foot, and it sends the signal anyway. So there was a little run out there of people saying, oh gosh, you can use it just with your mind. I want to disabuse everybody of that notion. It is not just your mind. You have to actually try to move the muscle for it to activate. It would be incredible if we had mind control. We do not. So, but I think it's magical even without mind control.
This is my
So,
NeuroNode.
this is another placement option, again, just to show you some of the ways we can access muscles. So if, and I will tell you that many of my folks with ALS, we do this, we're moving as different areas become maybe more fatigued, that we look for different placements. So we keep finding that muscle movement to be able to access the device. So here's another option. In this situation, the NeuroNode is being worn on an adapter, and that adapter is connected to electrodes that are placed here on the face to capture a smile. So she's doing a smile activation along with her eyes. And that's a Trilogy user.
Hi. How are you doing? What have you been up to? Good to see you. When will I see you again? Goodbye.
Okay, so again, just loads of options. And finally, my favorite veteran that I mentioned in the first video, and this is the day he got his device. You can notice that he's wearing the NeuroNode on the non-adhesive band down here on his right arm. And if you will watch that, he's using it with his eyes on the device, but you can see how little movement it takes for him to activate.
Kelly is awesome. This is an excellent day.
He, again, was a power user. So let's see here. So setting up the NeuroNode in EMG is going to look just like it did in spatial. And I think this is where I'm going to take just a minute. We're going to really cross our fingers. I'm going to try to share on my device to show you what that setup looks like. So let's see here. I'm going to share this screen. Just a minute of transition here. Okay, so good. It looks like we can see things as we should. This is what the controller app looks like. This is really important because there have been EMGs switches. This is something that is a technology that was out there, but it's, they've progressed, which is phenomenal. And in the past, there were not necessarily ways to know exactly what information that EMG switch was receiving. And so you just kind of set some dials and hope for the best. So this controller app is incredibly helpful in that realm because it lets us really see what kind of activity is registering with the NeuroNode and lets us change some parameters. So this is a really important piece. Often when we bring this up, we'll have clients who start really working hard to try to make a particular movement. And we tell them, it's not all these adjustments are made to come to you. So you just make the movement that is comfortable, doesn't matter what that movement is. And we're able to make adjustments in this controller app to adapt to what your movement is. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the software because we talked about the access. Okay, so that piece is so important that has to be flexible enough for you that it can change and adapt as you change over time. It needs to keep coming to find you. Very important piece. And so I want to talk now because the other way that we can keep finding you. Oh, okay. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen is through the software. So we're going to look for a minute at Grid 3. And I should say that Grid 3 is what we typically offer. We are app agnostic, we call ourselves. So if you are somebody who has used a communication software that you dearly loved and it was what you preferred, we could use that software as well. So I'm going to go ahead and good news, it looks like things are updated over here. I will come back to that after we have our discussion about the software. So I'm going to share my screen and I'd like for us to take a look for just a minute at the Grid 3 software. Give me 1 second. Oh my goodness, I have so many things open right now. There we go. And sorry, guys. Okay, that was a big pause. So now that I've got this up and available, I'm going to share the screen on Grid 3 just to give you a quick look at that. This is an important piece because once you've established access and you've got a reliable, non-fatiguing way to access your device, you need to be sure that what you're accessing there is everything you need it to be. And these days, communication obviously is going to happen face-to-face, but it also happens a lot via text and email and phone. And so Grid 3 has got some great options for all of that. So I'm going to show you just a few. As you can see, there's a lot to Grid 3. And each one of these little squares is essentially a file with different ways for you to communicate. So I'm going to take a look really quickly at something we call Fast Talker. It's one of the symbol-based communication options that we have. Fast Talker is going to have a way for you to generate just a novel utterance is what we would call it. So a way for you to type. It's super powerful in terms of its word prediction. These days, word prediction is smart word prediction, and it's almost like it's reading your mind, which is unnerving, but really helpful when you're using alternative access because that decreases the number of keystrokes, which means you get your message out more quickly. So if I wanted to say, I'm having a great day, I'm going to show you that I can use just word prediction. And it's predicting.
Having a great
I actually
day.
I've never said that before, but it predicted it that quickly. So that's important because when you're talking alternative access, even if we have a non-fatiguing way for you to do it, it's very different than using your voice. So if you can get something out more quickly, that's great. So you've got that. I put up here.
I'm having a great day.
Read that for me. I also have the option for chat history. So it can show me what I've typed recently. If I know I typed something recently and I want to just be able to say that, I can go to my chat history. There are other things that I might do. I might say all the time. So it's got an option for pre-programmed messages. Within Fast Talker, you've got The dark blue are file folders, and in each of these file folders, you can see messages that were programmed. Really important piece of this, down in the lower right-hand corner here, you see add phrase and remove phrase, because these grid sets are meant to be used by the individual using the device. So sometimes I think when speech pathologists are looking at programming a device, you think about you being the one who programs it. In this situation, it's very easy for the user to program those devices. So for example, back here on Quickfires, if I have typed the sentence, "I'm having a great day," I can add that device just by clicking which square I want it to be in. Super easy. Removing is just as easy. So if I go to remove, I'm going to click on what I want to remove. So that means that you, as a user, if you have created a phrase, you can program that into your device very easily. In addition, if you have had the opportunity to do any message banking, it's got a place here for your banked messages. And I should tell you that if you have banked messages and you import them, they're going to import and automatically populate into places like these pre-programmed messages. This day and age, we've got all kinds of other things. This is even more updated at this point. We have ways to interface with Facebook, with YouTube, with Twitter. We now have Instagram and WhatsApp. I don't know about any, I don't do any of those. I'm very old in that realm, but for those of you who love social media, there's a way to do that within the communication software. And what's nice about that is it means it's a way for you to access your those sites with your eyes. So I'm going to just bring up an example, Facebook, which I also am not great at. But what you'll notice is that over here, there are buttons or cells for everything that you could click on when you're on Facebook on your computer. There is a cell for it that is easy for your eyes to access. So they're optimized to allow you to use your eyes to interface with these things like Facebook. You can pair a phone. It doesn't have to be an iPhone, but it does need to be a smartphone. We can't accommodate flip phones, but you can pair your phone so you can make and receive phone calls. You can send and receive texts, send and receive emails within the communication software. Service is our environmental control software. So for people who are still using, want to access infrared technology, you have ways to use your device to access your television, your lights, your fans, anything that you have that can be controlled through infrared. A lot of people these days are using Alexa or the Echo Dots and things like that, home environmental controls, and that's great. All of the devices are going to work with that as well. You have ways to get out to the internet. Just take a look at that real quickly. So again, anything that you could click on your computer in the past using a traditional mouse, it's got it optimized to use with your eyes. I have ways to do some word processing. I can take pictures. I can store my music and video. In this particular grid set, I've got a way, that's settings. Let me go back to the first page. I've got a way to get a caregiver into my room if I need them immediately. I can activate that with my eyes and get them there. This is a feature that is super important. I just had a client in Cisco, Georgia, very rural area. There's not internet. It's not that she doesn't have internet. There is not an option to have internet there. And she lives by herself and her ALS is quite advanced. So being able to set her up with this SMS alert was critical for her. So this is a way that she can do one look and activation, and that sends an emergency text to a contact that she chose who is close by and can come and help her. That's a really important piece. And this, I went through that quickly because what I want to do is show you, go out here to Grid Explorer, and I'm going to show you very quickly something called Alpha Core. Again, we've got word prediction, a keyboard, an option for chat history. If I go out to my topics, you see a different arrangement, but again, I have those pre-programmed phrases so that I don't have to type everything I want to say. Those things I say all the time, I can do that easily. I also have a really easy way to add or remove phrases there. I've got great options
I've been.
like this.
Binge watching TV.
And again, all of that's really easy to personalize. We've got here options for a phone chat, for example.
Please don't hang up. I have a medical condition and I'm using a speaking device.
And I can say things like,
I'm calling to. I've been binge watching TV. I'm calling to cancel an appointment.
so ways to maintain that autonomy. And along those lines, I want to show you this communication tips. These are super important because as you lose your ability to speak, you need to be sure that people understand that you are there, you know what's going on, and you still are going to manage the situation. So things like this.
I know you are trying to help, but please don't finish my messages.
And things like this.
When I'm ready with my message, I will play this sound.
So that's nice. You can construct a message and then let people know when you're done. I'd like to let you hear this one.
My hearing and thinking are fine, so you can speak normally to me.
Those are all really important so that you are maintaining autonomy and self-advocacy as your ALS progresses. Now, going back out here to topics, and again, I'll show you ways to get to the internet, photo and camera, email, my texting. Here's Alexa if I want to use home environmental controls that way. And the reason I'm going through this so fast is because I couldn't possibly show you everything in this. But what I want to show you is that we just touched on some features here in Fast Talker, and we touched on some features here in Alpha Core. But you can see how many options there are that may look overwhelming. And I do have an unusually high number. Everybody would normally have this many grid sets. I collect them. They are my passion. But all of this, every time I'm showing you lots of features, that all represents flexibility and accessibility so that we're going to be sure to be able to have something that fits your needs. And you can mix and match. If you like features from one grid set and features from another, we can pull those together. That's really important because you need to be sure once you have that access that what you are able to access on your computer is meeting all of your needs. So you've really they thought of everything. I feel like they do a great job of allowing you to continue to interact and interface with the world just through an alternative access. For any speech pathologists out there, this piece is really huge. We have the option to add remote editors within this. So that means that you can be added as a remote editor on your client's device. And if you need to add or program things for them within Grid 3, you can do that remotely just from your laptop. And it does not interfere with their use of the device. The next time the client closes out their device and then turns it back on, your changes would be there in the grid set. And that's super handy because that means if you have 5 minutes between clients, you would have an option for supporting the client remotely. I'd also like to say that all of our devices come with Zoom already installed. So that allows us an easy way to support you. That piece is so important. High-tech devices are high-tech devices and people are going to have questions about them. They're going to wonder about how to do things. So being able to access support is really important. And that's something that is, I would say, at the forefront of Control Bionics. And again, I was on assistive technology teams for years prior to coming to Control Bionics. And I know that when I was working with folks and there was an issue with the device or a question with the device, and I called in and couldn't get someone on the phone, or I had to submit an online ticket and got something saying they would respond in 24 to 48 hours. That's problematic. When you have a question and it is your form of communication, you need to be able to have access to someone. And I am thrilled to be with a company that offers 24/7 support. And that's legitimately accurate. If you call at 11 o'clock at night and you have a question, there'll be somebody that can get on and help you. And most problems we can handle within about 2 to 3 minutes via Zoom. We can often talk you through it. We can also take control of the device. If you're not comfortable doing it, we can do that via Zoom. So there's a number of options just built into the device to be able to help you remotely, which has been really important for making sure people are making the best use of their device. And hopefully you can still see me in the upper right-hand corner. I am holding up the NeuroNode. So this is what setup looks like. I'm going to shake it to wake it up. You'll see it move through a series of colors. When it's flashing red, that means it's ready to connect to the controller app. So I'm just going to tap connect to NeuroNode. And that's how quickly it connects. It's pretty fast. So just for ease, you can see I've got it is already reading my movements. I'm going to put it in spatial right now. And let's go back to the graph. So I'm putting this on my wrist. Not the easiest thing to do with one hand. So it's on my wrist. And now you can see when I move my wrist, I'm getting a little bump in the blue. So the blue line is registering my movement. The bottom line is yellow. I think sometimes on Zoom, those colors don't come through, but the bottom line, that is the bottom dash line, is the yellow line, is the resting level. The green line at the top is the activation level. So anytime you see my blue line go from below yellow to above green, that means the computer would recognize that as a click. So if I make the green line closer to the yellow line, it means I can have a smaller movement. And let me just give you this overview, because I'm going to tell you that that's probably intimidating information, the things I'm saying right now. Everything that you see on this screen represents a way that we can customize the device to read your movements. That's the most important thing. All of those are ways that we can meet you where you are in terms of your movement. So I'm going to go back here and you'll see that now my green line is very low. It's very close to the yellow line, which means only the tiniest movement is needed. So I'm barely moving at all, getting a nice clean activation there. So anytime I'm going from below yellow to above green, the computer sees that as a click. So that is how it looks. And what we typically do is we will place the NeuroNode. We'll find what movement works for you. We'll place the NeuroNode, and then we would go in and set these parameters for you, and then we would save them to the device. So this wouldn't even be a step that the caregivers need to do every day. Once that's set, it's saved to the computer. So when you turn it on and you open Grid 3, you can just start using your NeuroNode. You don't even have to go into this controller app, but it's a nice thing to have just to be able to see specifics about the movements. And I will tell you, we do have some families who really are very sciencey and or just interested, and they will make these changes themselves. But if that's not something you're comfortable with, it's something we would do for you. And as we talked about earlier, the ALS changes, it's going to change how you move over time. So this is actually something we can even shift remotely using Zoom. So if you notice, for example, Mr. Payton, who you saw with in the PowerPoint, had fasciculations for a time, and he was in a nursing home during a COVID outbreak. So they were not letting anyone in, but we were able to join him via Zoom and work with his CNA. And she put the NeuroNode in a new place, and we got in the controller app and made those changes remotely, and he was up and running again just in a few minutes. So just so many nice features there. So that's the way the controller app works. And I will just stop sharing here and head back over here and go back to our PowerPoint. We're almost done with that. I can't believe I did it in 50 minutes. I'm not good at that because I'm a talker. Oh, I've shared the wrong thing. Let me share something different. Going back to our PowerPoint. Here we go. So we talked about the Grid 3 software. We talked about these text-based communication options. There are also some with symbol support. Some people really like that because they feel like it makes them able to find things on the screen a little better. All of that's available. And again, for independence, being able to get out on your desktop and just use your computer as you would your laptop with your eyes or with scanning is available. Environmental controls. I will say, and I would be interested, Reagan, to hear from you. I think a lot of people inquire about infrared and environmental controls, but I have only one client who actually uses them. Most of my clients are actually using Alexa or the Echo at this point, and I'd be interested to hear from other people if that's what they're seeing as well. And that you can use texting, so that's nice. And we talked about the online grid sets. So I'm going to show you really quickly just a look at using the Alexa with Grid 3 and the Trilogy. Oh, wait.
Alexa, what is
I'm thinking you guys may not be able to see that. Can you see it, Reagan? Because I think it did a.
Do you have something else pulled up when you click on it? Yeah, we cannot see that.
And I'm just going to share everything. And I apologize if it becomes for a moment my chaotic desktop. I think really, if you are an organized person, I would just say look away until I tell you to look. Okay, now there we go. So this is the Trilogy using Alexa, a common occurrence these
the
days.
weather today?
In Orlando, it's 84 degrees Fahrenheit with clear skies and sun. Today's forecast calls for more of the same, with a high of 87 degrees and a low of 68 degrees. Hope you have a good Tuesday.
So depending on how
Alexa, what is the weather today?
depending on how much you use Alexa or the Echo, just know that you can do all of that with your device. It's going to function well. And in fact, I didn't show you those grid sets, but there are pre-programmed grid sets that already come with most of the commands that you would give to Alexa or Echo. But again, it's easily personalizable for what you want to do. So we take just a minute now to talk about the two devices. So we do have two different devices that we offer. We have our original NeuroNode Trilogy. The base of this is a Surface Pro tablet, and it is one of the higher end Surface Pro tablets. So it's got quite a bit of processing speed and RAM. So here's one of those ways where I say it's got great CPU and RAM, and I barely know what those mean. But if you know computers, you know that's a good thing. This is what the people who know computers tell me. So it is speedy, it is fast. It's a great computer in terms of just access. I know one of my clients long ago had spinal muscular atrophy, had parents who were computer engineers, and they once asked me, why are such high-tech things like eye gaze cameras attached to such low quality computers? I didn't know they were, but this is a high quality computer, so that's a great option. I know a lot of our folks who are still working with ALS will choose this because it does have that speed component. It is very lightweight, it's very slim, which is nice in the world of eye gaze. I do think we're all doing better. All companies are doing better in that realm these days, but it is slim, lightweight, easy to carry, and a great option. We also have now the Trilogy Grid Pad, which is more rugged. It's going to be a little bigger, a little heavier. It does have really incredible battery life, 10 hours using eye gaze, which is incredible because eye gaze cameras really drain batteries. We've got obviously Grid 3 for both of those. The Grid Pad has got built-in infrared. The Trilogy can be added on, but it's not built into it. So for the Grid Pad, the IR is built in. It has extra speakers and extra ports. So it's got an additional USB port, it's got an HDMI port, and it's got ports for traditional switches like mechanical switches that can be plugged in. So both of them are great options. They're covered the same way by insurance. So it really just comes to personal preference. I want to point out at the bottom of each of these, we have the TM5 mini camera or the Alia camera. Both are excellent. Eye gaze cameras work on algorithms. So that is really going to be up to each individual user. I like to let my clients try out both and see which one they feel more comfortable with. And we can configure these devices in any way. We do it specifically for each client. If you like the Trilogy device, but you prefer the Alia camera, we can put that together for you. So our focus is access and personalized, customized access for the device. So it is something that, look, Reagan, we talked about this ahead of this, and I said, I'm going to get rid of all these animations because we don't need all of that. So I'm going to shoot through those quickly. We've talked through all the features. In terms of funding, we are Medicare fundable, and we have Medicaid coverage, private insurance, and we are able to do all of that. It's a one-time funding application. Very important to note that we have a lot of support in terms of helping you through that funding piece. It's been amazing to me. The way this usually would look for you, if you're a client who has ALS, is I would come in, bring the devices, you try them out with your speech pathologist, and you guys decide if it's a good fit. If it is, which configuration you want, which device makes the most sense for you. And then we get your insurance cards and you fill out one packet of paperwork, and then our incredible funding team, they are amazing. They take over and you don't do anything else. So we keep you updated, but they are the ones who kind of do all of the battle and handle everything with insurance. So thank you so much. This is my contact information. And when I say get in touch, I'm not kidding. If you have any questions at all, you can call me, you can text me, you can email me. I am happy to answer any questions you have, or just even set up a time to do just a one-on-one Zoom session so you can ask questions.
Thank you so much, Jill.